3D Mad Hatter from Alice Through the Looking Glass, acrylic nailer tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hi guys! In today's video I created a 3D Mad Hatter from Alice Through the Looking Glass, and it goes really good with the Red Queen that I did a little while ago, so be sure to check that one out as well. And I hope you like this design, and don't forget to click subscribe to see my future videos as well.
So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a green background, and so I started with this really bright green shimmery acrylic, and I just did a very thin layer. And as I was doing this, I realized that this green isn't exactly the color I was hoping for. It's a little too blue. So then the next layer I did is actually the same kind of color, the same shimmer, the same neon, but it's yellow, just to make it, just to tone down that blue tone. So that's what I'm doing now, is I'm just adding a thin layer of yellow just to really bring it out. Having that nice yellow green is really going to contrast well with the red of his hair and make it really pop. So now I'm going to be encasing that background with a layer of clear acrylic. Clear is the strongest color, and you also want to build your apex so that you have a nice strong nail, but you also want to keep it thin because that 3D art on top of it will help give it strength. And now I'm going to be filing it with a 180 grit file just to remove any bulk and shape it, and then with a 240 grit petafile, buff it to remove any scratches and apply a layer of gel sealer and throw that in my lamp for 2 minutes to cure it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out where I want his face to be on the nail, since that is the most important part. That's the first part I want to do to make sure that I have space for it, and it is on the nail exactly where I want it to be. So I want it to be just slightly above the tip because we want to have room for that nice, awesome, huge hat of his. Even if it isn't the whole hat, we want to have room for at least a good portion. So I just did the basic shape of his face with white, and now I'm going to start and I'm going to work on sculpting his hat with brown. And his hat is actually a very, very dark green. My dark green acrylic, however, is semi-opaque, and so it does show the color through beneath it, and it won't have that really dark color payoff I'm going for unless I put a dark color underneath it, which is what I'm doing here with brown. So first I did the brim of his hat, and now I'm going to be working on the top section and just tucking those sides in a little bit just to give it that nice hourglass type shape. And then I'm going to be adding the layer of green. So what I did for the brim is I just sort of laid it on top, and then I pushed it up with my brush, which is going to make it, it's going to force the acrylic to go up, and so that's going to give it some of that vertical height that we're going for with the brim of the hat. And so I'm just going to add a little bit of acrylic and then push it from each side just to make sure that it doesn't go over, it goes up. Like I said, we want it to have some height to it. And I'm also going to add green over the back, and then I'm going to add the band around the hat with some salmon colored acrylic. And I know it doesn't really look salmon in the video, but that is the color that we are using here. So just sort of like a peachy mauvey pink or salmon. And then also do the collar of his shirt with the same color. And I am so sorry that my camera goes out of focus here and there. Sometimes it has a mind of its own. Make sure you just poke your brush in the center of his collar just to give it some of that shape. And I'm going to be adding the rest of his jacket, which you really don't see too much here, with black. So basically just filling in the rest of that tip area with just a tiny amount of black acrylic. And now we're going to be working on his hair, which is one of the fun part, I would have to say, for this nail. So I'm going to be adding just the section of his hair on the side, and then taking my brush and sort of poking it just to give it a little bit of texture. We're not going too deep on the texture front at this point because that's going to be done with orange later, but just a little bit, just so that it's not so flat underneath. So just patting that down and then jabbing it with the tip of my brush. So then I'm going to take some beads of white and orange, not white. And then I'm going to really roughly lay that on there. So I'm just going to put it on and then just sort of kind of beat it up a little bit so it has a really rough, unfinished texture almost to it. So now I'm going to be adding a layer of white acrylic across his face, a second layer I should say. And this is going to be a slightly thicker layer than the first one because we are going to be adjusting it here and there to create our shape of our facial shapes and the differences and all that good stuff. So then taking my 3D sculpting brush, I'm going to press it in once that layer of white acrylic is turned matte. And I'm going to press in for his eye sockets and then also beneath his nose, because I really want these sculpted apples of his cheeks that he has. They're so enhanced. And I'm going to thicken up his nose a little bit, so down the bridge and then the end of his nose especially, just like so. And then I'm going to be sculpting his eyebrows the same way I did his hair, starting with red. And so I want his eyebrows to be thick. I don't want them to be thin and wispy at all. They need to be really thick and expressive. So first I'm going to start with red, and then they go all the way out the sides of his face into his hair, and then add some orange over the top of it in the same manner that we did for his hair, just really roughly laying it on there, not trying to be smooth with it. And then I'm going to be painting the shapes of his eyes with black paint, and as you will see in a moment, I made a total mess of this step. I don't know what was going on, but it's not a huge deal that I messed it up, because you can fix it later. And as you can see, I did it with both eyes. I don't know what was going on. So then I'm just going to take some white, and I'm going to fix up those little areas with his face. And I'm also going to highlight. So I'm going to do his cheekbones, his chin, and his nose, the bridge of his nose, and his forehead just a little bit with white, since white acrylic paint is going to be much brighter of a color than white acrylic. And so you can highlight with it, and it almost makes the original background color sort of a gray look. So then we're going to be adding his makeup. So I'm going to blend some pink paint on his cheeks for his blush. And it's really easy if you use diluted paint to add all of these little makeup touches. I'm also going to do some pink underneath his eyes. Excuse me, underneath his eyes. And then we're also going to add some red under his eyes and blend that out just a pinch. And then above his eyes, we are going to use some blue. And so these are the colors of his eyeshadow, basically. And as the blue goes all the way up to his eyebrows, it touches his eyebrows. And so then we're going to add his pink lips. And then I'm going to blend some red into his lips because, you know, he's got all of these bright, vibrant colors. We really want his lips to show up. And then with white paint, I'm going to refill in where his eyes should be. So just repaint the shapes and try not to make a mess of this step because it wouldn't be nearly as fun to fix it at this point. And then add his eyelashes below with just little flicks using white paint once again. And I'm going to add his waterline with orange, so just a really thin line right by his eyelashes, his lower eyelashes. And then add a circle in each eye for the green. And you don't want these to be at the same level. You want them one to be a little higher or lower, a little bit left, a little bit right, and then fill in with a lighter shade of green because his eyes are looking in slightly different directions. So then I'm going to re-highlight the top line of his eye, add his black eyelashes, and then his pupils. And don't go too crazy with his eyelashes because he is still male, even though he's all colorful and made up. You don't want him to have these crazy looking eyelashes. And then add a matte top coat over the top of everything that you put acrylic paint on. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like this design. Please share any recreations with me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to see them, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!